Travis, you have no one to blame but yourself.
So I've been an atheist for the last 5 years, right? I was a Christian all my life, my friend. So I know the Bible inside out, right? I know all the stories in the Bible. Even though I am old, I cannot remember everything.
How you doing today?
I'm slipping gradually into senility.
Really? Do you consider that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's a mixed bag. It's good in the sense that I can take walks in my underwear.
Even though I am old, I cannot remember everything. Science, you realize that evolution is the truth, right? That we all came from primates.
During the 5 years that you became a scientist, that number only went up to 85%, Travis. And when we share 60% in common with bananas, the distance between bananas and chimps is almost the same between chimps and humans. See, you don't know science, man. Don't talk science with me, because you will get eaten alive, Travis. You don't know science.
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us.
Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if you told it to you.
If God cannot convince me with his book, then I am not.
Yes, 100%. It's your fault because you were satisfied with being convinced that he's a fairy tale and you never had a true desire to actually seek if he's really true. And that's your fault. That's on you. That's your free will. You lived all these years, 81 years of your life, satisfied that Jesus was a fairy tale. And then who else are you going to have to blame but yourself, Travis? You have no one to blame but yourself.
So I've been an atheist for the last 5 years, right? I was a Christian all my life, my friend. So I know the Bible inside out, right? I know all the stories in the Bible. Even though I am old, I cannot remember everything.
How you doing today?
I'm slipping gradually into senility.
Really? Do you consider that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's a mixed bag. It's good in the sense that I can take walks in my underwear.
Even though I am old, I cannot remember everything.
But as long as I look happy while I'm doing it, people just assume I'm senile. So I really am going senile.
Alzheimer's can't be all bad. You get a chance to meet new people every day.
I like you, Monty.
I like you too, sir.
But I know all the stories in the Bible, right? And I realized I have been wasting all my time on this book, right? Trying to convince people that the Bible is from God. But when you dive into science, you realize that evolution is the truth, right? That we all came from primates, right? We were all...
Wait, let me respond to that. You make it sound like Jesus, for 76 years of your life, you were a Christian. And then for the last 5 years, all of a sudden you believe that evolution is the truth? And you believe that you actually came from primates? When the science books tell us that we're 99.8% in common with chimps, we're not. Dr. Richard Buggs proved that wrong in 2014 and again this year. And guess what? In 2014, it was only 84.4% in common with chimps. When you take all of the DNA code and you compare a 1-to-1, it's only 84.4. And then 11 years later in 2025, during the 5 years that you became a scientist, that number only went up to 85%, Travis. And when we share 60% in common with bananas, the distance between bananas and chimps is almost the same between chimps and humans. So let me just assure you, what you say about evolution being true, there's a vast difference between microevolution and macroevolution. What Charles Darwin observed empirically at the Galapagos Islands with the differing finch beaks, that's microevolution. That's adaptation of species within the same kind. Macroevolution posits that these little adaptations over millions and billions of years creates new kinds. And that's just not true, because from the very beginning, you had one shark, and then that one shark diversified into all kinds of different sharks, but they never became some other kind of creature. And birds didn't evolve from freaking dinosaurs. They coexisted at the same time, bro.
Yes, but sir, you have to understand, right? Evolution takes millions of years, right? And according to scientist Hanson Coxer, he says that in order to disprove evolution, you have to come up with archaeological evidence, right? And religious people, they cannot come up with archaeological evidence to try to disprove evolution, right? I assume...
What are you talking about? There's a lot of that.
In early July 2000, Alvis Delk, assisted by James bishop, both of Stephenville, Texas, were working in the Cretaceous limestone on the McFall property at the Biloxi River near Glen Rose, Texas, and discovered a pristine human footprint intruded by a dinosaur footprint. This discovery was made in the vicinity of McFall 1 and 2 sites, where the Creation Evidence Museum team has excavated since the spring of 1982. The 11-inch human footprint matches 7 other such footprints of the same dimensions in the Sir George series named in honor of His Excellency Governor General Ratu Sir George Thakambau of Fiji, and I knew him personally. And I excavated the tracks we're talking about here. The fossil artifact was transported to a professional laboratory where 800 X-rays were performed in a CT scan procedure. Laboratory technicians verified compression and distribution features clearly seen in both prints, human and dinosaur. This removes any possibility that the prints were carved or altered. The results are posted on the CEM website, creationevidence.org. So here we have the human footprint and the Acrocanthosaurus footprint seen very clearly. We have a number of the spiral CAT scans showing where it is light, there is more compression, and this is where the foot compressed and extended. And those who are specialists said there's no question, both human footprint and dinosaur footprint are genuine.
And the Cambrian explosion is plenty proof to debunk the fact that all living organisms evolved from a single-celled amoeba. Because how do you account for the explosion of diversified species during the Cambrian explosion?
There are many paleontologists now who are acknowledging that the Cambrian explosion is a real event and that it does pose a challenge to the textbook theory of evolution that we all learned called neo-Darwinism.
What fossil evidence refutes the artifact hypothesis that the reason the missing links, the prior ancestors of the Cambrian animals, have not been found is because they were too soft and too small to have been preserved? I want you to watch this next clip.
The Xinjiang fossils provide the most inclusive picture of the Cambrian explosion yet documented.
They're eggs and embryos, which are preserved in thin crusts of mineralized material, a phosphatic material, on ancient seafloors, which suggests that the chemistry of the seawater in those days was somewhat different than it is today, because this method of preserving fossils disappears during the Cambrian, and it's not around today. So we're lucky that we have these thin crusts with little tiny fossils in them.
This is highly significant because one of the most popular explanations for the missing Precambrian fossils is that the Precambrian animals were too soft and too small to have been preserved.
Since 1999, Paul Chen has studied fossil embryos and helped develop techniques to analyze their structure.
And then I start breaking up these balls and try to start looking inside. And with the help of the electron microscope, I was able to see the detailed subcell structure within these embryos.
Chen's work on these fragile remnants of Precambrian life raises an important question.
If these lower strata, if they can preserve a soft microscopic embryo, then why couldn't they have preserved the larger ancestral forms that supposedly evolved into the Cambrian animals? In other words, if you can preserve something as fragile as an embryo, why couldn't you, in the same strata of rock, preserve the immediate ancestor of a hard-shelled trilobite?
So the idea that the fossil record is too damaged to provide us with at least a general picture, that idea just doesn't wash.
See, you don't know science, man. Don't talk science with me, because you will get eaten alive, Kravis. You don't know science.
But according to your belief system, right? You believe that all life started from Adam and Eve, right?
Yes,
right.
The science supports that.
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us.
Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if you told it to.